everyone, welcome back to Todos Santos. It's our first episode back in the city after quite a while, but we're going to be picking up right where we left off, which is filling in this newly created area that we made the last episode with this freeway and those other surface roads we laid down. And we're just starting off with a little bit of finessing this highway to fit it between these two hills, which is going to be the focus of this first episode back. I got the idea for this build just from flying around San Juan on Google Maps, and I stumbled across this thing, which I thought was really cool to just have like this big urban forest right in the middle of a bunch of development, which is kind of cool. So in real life, it's called San Patricio State Forest, and it's a second growth forest, so basically it's had to contend with various attempts to have it developed over the years. Like at one point, it apparently was used as farmland, so the original trees were cut down, and then I'm not sure exactly when or in what context, but a new forest was planted, and it's grown into what it is now, which is used as a park, an urban park, which is kind of cool. And then there's also, of course, the most distinctive feature, which is the hill, on top of which there's a communication tower of some sort. And as you can see, that asset there, we're going to be replicating that, or at least attempting to make something that kind of captures the spirit of that, with this very cool asset, which I think is based off of a tower in San Francisco. But the main impact that this build has on the city, I think, is just to add something kind of distinctive to the skyline, to have this big forested hill with this giant tower on top. It looks really nice, and it is always just kind of hiding in the background of pretty much every single screenshot and cinematic that I record, and even some of the time lapse. So I'm pretty happy with that aspect of it. As for its use as a park, like its main purpose in real life, I'm going to be kind of ignoring that for this build, but my plan right now is to have a very similar build with like a urban forest that's very centered on public recreation somewhere else. Maybe like on one end of the island where the old town is, just to kind of round that out. Or potentially somewhere else in the city, or, you know, we could do multiple builds like that. We'll see. And so at the top of the hill, I just placed this little building just to serve as like a little maintenance area, or they run the operations that make the communications tower work, or something like that. I didn't have anything particular in mind, just wanted to have something for this windy road to lead up to other than the tower itself. And then I had the other building, not the pink one, but the one with the dark roof there, just to provide some services. But I think I'm going to go back and remove that because the style of the building doesn't fit, but then also the dark roof. Someone mentioned in a comment that most roofs in Puerto Rico, and I assume in most areas that get hot, are not black, which kind of makes sense because it would hold on to heat better. And that definitely checks out. Like when I fly around on Google Maps, pretty much every roof is like light gray or white or silver or something like that. Although there are definitely a few darker roofs scattered around. It's always nice to learn something new like that. Anyway, because this is such a big piece of infrastructure, I thought the base just sort of looked a little bare and a little kind of weak, so I just wanted to add some depth and some detail to it to make it look like it's really anchored into the ground there. So while I build this, I'd like to do just a little bit of housekeeping for the series. Obviously, I was gone for over a year. I apologize for that. But I have 12 episodes worth of footage recorded and edited and completed, and I can say that now because I'm not going to upload this video until everything's done and ready to go. I wanted to be sure that I had a lot of progress made in the city for you guys to see. And in my opinion, the builds keep getting better and better, and the cinematics keep getting better and better. At least that's my hope. I've tried to put a lot of effort and thought into them, so I hope you can see that progression as we move forward in the series. And as for what we're actually going to be working on, we're starting in this area that we expanded into last episode by building that freeway and all those roads. And then what we're going to do after that is move back into the areas that have been neglected a little bit and kind of have big gaps everywhere. And we just start filling things in. But it's not just like episode after episode of plopping buildings down and detailing. I try to keep each episode unique and like give it a particular project to work on. And then I'm doing a lot of the kind of just generic building plopping and copying and pasting off screen, filling in lots of areas, and we get some really nice aerial shots of Todos Santos later on. Not quite in this episode, but fairly soon we'll be getting some really cool aerial shots of just the whole city completely filled in as far as the boundaries of like what we've created so far. Obviously, we're nowhere close to being able to actually say that the city is like done or filled in or whatever. But I am getting to the point as of like where I'm building now, not where we are in these videos, where I can like look at the city and say like, wow, we could actually keep working on this and have a finished product, which I think is pretty exciting. Because I mean, I always wanted to fill in the entire city and have it be, you know, fairly big, or as big at least as, you know, things like the prop limit and the node limit will allow us to make it. But now it's actually kind of seeming like something that we might be able to do before the save breaks or we hit the node limit or something like that. And by the way, there's a mod now, the new prop anarchy, that allows you to bypass the prop limit, which is really cool. So we're going to be doing everything from infrastructure to like the most detailed stuff we've done in the city so far. Several things that are just kind of from my imagination, and then quite a few projects that are based off real things, or at least inspired by real things in San Juan. So hopefully you are looking forward to that as much as I am to sharing it with you, because I'm really excited, especially as we get toward like the end of the episodes that I've prepared so far. I'm just really happy with how they're coming out. So I hope you'll stick around for those. I'm getting a little off track there, just getting excited to share with you what I've been working on. Anyway, so back to what I'm actually building here. I really have no idea what sort of stuff goes on at like a little installation like this next to a communications tower. So I just kind of made it up. I have a guy on a cherry picker there, like doing some maintenance or whatever. And there are just various supplies laying around. I don't know. It seems like it'd be a bad idea to have like sacks of stuff sitting out where it could rain on them. But, you know, I don't work there. I'm not going to judge them. So now, of course, we're adding some road signs, which is always my favorite part of a build. And we're just going to kind of put down the initial details just to get sort of a feeling for what this area at the top of the hill is going to look like. So I'll let you watch that really quickly. There's not much I have to say about it. And then I'll meet you back at the bottom of the hill. See you in a second. I don't know if I've ever mentioned this before, but one thing that really bugs me about this game, at least before you mod it a bunch and spend like 4 hours detailing a single stretch of road, is that there are no entrances like off of the road. Like there are no driveways. There's just like curb all the way along the road. So if you have a building with a parking lot or a house with a driveway or something, the cars would have to drive over the curb to park, which like just seems ridiculous. And the reason I mentioned that there is just because I didn't want to actually connect this road to the main road, because I didn't want vehicles like driving up and down it all the time, which you know they would. Even though there's nothing to do for them up there and there's literally like one building, there's just going to be a parade of traffic going up and down all the time. And I knew that was going to bug me, so yeah. Because it's just a private road to the installation at the top of the hill, which like maybe like 1 or 2 people would need to go up every day, or if even that. So anyway, I used that very simple technique to make it look as if this road is connected to the main road just by pulling that plain paved road out from the road and then just kind of covering it up with some decals and stuff. And that's just something, it's really tedious to do it for like every situation where it would logically make sense for there to be an entrance off of the road. But I try to do it where it is visible or in like very particular instances like this. Where I think it's really going to stand out, especially like in the cinematics, or if you were to take a street drive around the area. And now I should probably mention the mass amounts of low poly foliage I'm putting down right now, which is just like a tree filler or a forest filler. And what I try to do, I'm not really convinced that it's going to be the final or the best option, is just pick trees to plop over it that peak up above the height. And that way I don't have to put down as many actual tree assets, which are going to absolutely ruin my FPS. And yeah, we can see now I start putting down these tall trees because there really aren't that many trees other than palm trees I have that stick up that far. And the final look is okay. It looks a little weird. Like there's this just like green mound with like really bad textures and low poly, everything just horrible, which is, it's meant to be. It's not a problem with the asset. It's functioning the way the asset is designed. But then it just has these like little weird trees sticking up all over. And it looks a little strange when you look at it from the side, which I'm a little concerned about. So I might try to find another tree asset that works better. I mean, you can see here, like I'm putting these down. These oaks are really beautiful assets, but they're also very high poly, or I guess tri-counts they call them for city skylines. So I'm really putting down way too many of them here, if I'm being honest. Like no one's ever going to see that level of detail. Or if they do, like they're not going to notice if it's gone. So I should probably go back and delete some of those. I say I'm going to go back and do these things. It happens sometimes, I promise. Sometimes. I do use these oak clusters. These are really low poly, and I've been using them a lot for like filling in areas, especially like filling in small gaps between buildings, and it really gives that sort of Google Maps look, like when you look down at a neighborhood that has trees in it and you just see these like green clusters. I don't know, it kind of works like that. They don't really fit the theme looking up close. Like they don't really look like something you'd find in a tropical place or subtropical place. But I don't know if that really matters because I just use them really as filler and to give that texture from above. And it's kind of hard to find a balance in a city like this where you want to have a big city and be able to fly over it and have it look like it's like you're looking down at a real city on Google Maps, but then also balance that with the compulsion to just go in and detail everything like mad. And I think trees are one of the main areas of a city where this comes up when you're building like this, because there's so much detail to them up close that make them unique and make them interesting. And then the types of trees vary also, of course, based on the geography and the environment and so many other factors. But then they also have this like massive presence when you look at them from above, at least in a city that actually has tree cover or big urban parks like this. So it's kind of hard to balance that level of detail with also getting thousands, if not millions of them down. And it's an even bigger problem, of course, when you have to deal with your tanking FPS in a game where you're already running it at like 10 FPS, and that's pretty good. But you can see I've just like put these trees down like crazy, and it's still, I just don't think it's enough to really give it that look up close. And not even up close, but just from an angle. I will say though that I'm pretty happy with how it looks from far away and from above, because it kind of just all blends together and you don't really see those weird trees sticking up. Yeah. Anyway, that's another problem for another day. I still, I look around on San Juan a lot on Google Maps, and I still like don't quite have it in my head how the foliage fits into the landscape. So a lot of it does just come from my imagination, and that's fine. Nice view. Everything you're seeing now is going to be filled in within the next 10 episodes. Other than like the stuff very way off in the distance, but whatever. Okay, power lines. These are power lines. That's what they're called. So something I've encountered on my travels that I always thought was, I don't know if interesting is quite the right word, but it caught my eye, was how power lines, like sometimes they'll just go in a straight line. If there's a hill or there's a mountain, they'll just like cut down all the trees and just have the power lines like march right up on the mountain, down the other side or whatever, instead of, running them around. Which I guess it makes sense. So I wanted to do that here. And so I just moved some of the trees. Well, I deleted some of the trees and adjusted the forest fillers there, and then just had them go right across the hill. It just looks kind of cool from a distance to see that trench through the trees with the power lines running through it. Yeah. Okay, very last thing for this episode. We're doing something completely unrelated to literally anything we've done so far, and we're expanding this light rail track. And I really like how this turns out. It's just a very simple way for the track to turn onto the other side of the road, because obviously I didn't want to, well, not obviously, but I just didn't want to have the tram track kind of run up against the bottom of the hill. I wanted it to really look like it was a park that was protected, and this road had been there for a long time, and that was like the edge of the park. so there wasn't going to be any development of any kind on that other side. And anyway, I eventually want this light rail to kind of service the northern shore there, where like there's going to be, at least my plan right now is to have it be a tourist area, which is what it is in real life. So I'm thinking I'm going to try to not necessarily recreate that, but just try to capture the spirit of that area. So it was just easier to have it cross over here instead of, you know, like next to the hill or something. So this was a bit of a shorter episode than usual. They're going to get longer. I hope you like long episodes. Thank you so much for watching. Sorry again for the long absence. I hope to be back for, at the very, very, very bare minimum, the next 12 episodes of Todos Santos and the rest of Alpenglow, my other series, which is a snowfall and a very lightly modded series. So I hope to see you back for the next episode of Todos Santos and the rest of Alpenglow. Bye.